A new day begins at a sunlit high school. Inside a staff room, a teacher takes attendance while his colleagues, including a pensive brown-haired girl, listen. An older woman next to the girl complains that the first day back feels relentless. The brown-haired girl listens quietly, a thoughtful and distant look on her face. Tap. An older man startles her by placing a hand on her shoulder, wishing Ms. Baum good luck. Sniff. Another teacher despairs, lamenting that the second year isn't as easy as she'd hoped. The teachers settle into their cubicles for the day, the office filled with the quiet hum of work. Looking at a document, Ms. Baum finally understands what her colleagues were so worried about. A teacher complains the office is freezing because of a broken heater, while another asks their colleague, Ms. No, about her upcoming trip to the States. Gazing out the window, Ms. No seems to be enjoying the freedom of being single. Ms. Baum reflects on her own situation, admitting to herself that even though she applied for this position, she honestly didn't want to come. A colleague calls out to Ms. Baum, asking about her plans for the break. When her coworkers press her about vacationing with a boyfriend, Ms. Baum quietly admits she has no plans, which they call a shame. A nosy colleague glances out the window, then gasps in shock, exclaiming that she recognizes Hangil's uncle. The other teachers rush to the window in a panic, confirming the man's identity and shouting for someone named Mr. Hong to get out of the way. Amidst the growing chaos, someone yells to shut the door and turn off the lights, leaving a confused Ms. Baum standing in the dark. As a door rattles loudly, a teacher panics, remembering that it almost broke the last time this happened. He's coming. A teacher yells, frantically telling everyone to hurry back to their seats. A man's shoes step into the office, and a sudden sound makes Miss Baum look up from her desk in alarm. Her eyes widen in awe as she looks up at a man's handsome, smiling face. A muscular man with a prominent arm tattoo leans in the doorway with a cool, "Hello," leaving Ms. Baum gasping at his short sleeves in the cold weather. The tattooed man apologizes for the interruption and says he's here to see Mr. Hong Jung-pyo, who lets out a terrified shriek from his desk. "Quiet," he says, and his calm command instantly silences the entire panicked office. Ms. Baum is shocked to see Mr. Hong Jung-pyo hiding under his desk and asks what he's doing, only to be frantically shushed. A man introduces himself as Vice Principal Seok Kwon-soo and nervously confirms the visitor is Hong Gil's uncle, who coolly replies that he has time to wait. Whispers of rumors begin to circulate, recalling that Hong Gil's uncle was seen at a tea house surrounded by women. The rumors continue, with another claiming a gang boss was seen giving him a 90-degree bow. The wild speculation escalates as teachers recall rumors about his mother's scandalous obsession with another man, wondering if he's a killer. The vice principal tries to ease the tension by congratulating the man on some wonderful news he heard from Mr. Hong. The man's face darkens as he reveals the real reason for his visit. He heard Mr. Hong said a kid without parents has no business winning an award. Ms. Baum looks horrified, realizing Mr. Hong must have said those cruel words in front of the students. The vice principal desperately claims it's all a misunderstanding and asks Ms. Baum to fetch 2 coffees to de-escalate the situation. The tattooed man's anger flares as he questions if male teachers order female staff to get coffee, leaving the vice principal stammering in denial. Not wanting any more trouble, Ms. Baum stands to make coffee, asking a man now addressed as Lim if instant is all right. Bathed in a soft light, Ms. Baum looks flustered yet captivating as she stands before him. Standing closer now, Ms. Baum's eyes are drawn to the intricate dragon tattoo covering his arm. She examines his arm more closely and realizes with a start that it's a full tattoo sleeve. He breaks the silence by asking about the coffee mix, surprising her. He muses about the school's cheap coffee, and the vice principal laughs nervously. Lim offers to donate a proper espresso machine, then advises Ms. Baum to warm up by the heater, but she insists she runs hot and is fine. He crosses his arms and watches her with a quiet, unreadable expression. Spotting movement, Lim suddenly reaches down and yanks a terrified Mr. Hong out from under his desk. Holding the trembling teacher, Lim angrily asks if he was seriously joking about smoking at school. Ms. Baum watches the confrontation with a subtle smile, finding the entire situation unexpectedly thrilling. After tossing something in the trash, Lim walks directly toward her, making her heart race with nervousness. He stops right in front of her, his imposing presence making her wonder if her smile had offended him. Her heart pounds as their faces become inches apart, and she frantically wonders why he is so close. Leaning in, he whispers a single word, "Beauty," leaving her completely stunned and speechless. The tense moment hangs in the air, leaving her utterly shocked. Staring back at him, She struggles to comprehend what he just said to her. The vice principal frantically waves his arms, loudly insisting that the man's intense compliment was just a joke. Saying the air is stuffy, Lim begins dragging the vice principal outside to talk, leaving a confused Ms. Baum asking what he's doing. Lim glances back at Ms. Baum with a confident smirk, while she remains puzzled by his actions. A sudden "ah" escapes Ms. Baum as she seems to have a moment of understanding. She realizes he must have just come to give a warning, ensuring Mr. Hong won't make such cruel remarks again. As a colleague tells Ms. Hong it's safe to come out, Mr. Hong emerges ranting about the incident, but Ms. Baum decides to just ignore his outburst. Jolt. She suddenly remembers her other duties and turns her attention back to the student's files. Reading Seon Hong Yeol's file, she learns he's the son of a governor and, despite past struggles, is now ranked first in the school. She pushes the thought aside, reminding herself that she won't be at this school for long anyway. Looking out the window, she resigns herself to the thought that this year will probably be the same as the last. She pictures the student, Seon Han Yeol, looking pleased while holding what appears to be an award. In her imagination, she presents the award to Han Yeol, thinking he slightly resembles his uncle as she thanks him. Looking at the consultation forms, she sighs, feeling they're scheduled too early before she's even gotten to know the students. Sigh. Frustrated by the disorganization, she thinks to herself that the place has absolutely no system. A colleague reassures her, explaining that second-year parents rarely come for consultations, unlike the curious first-year or college-focused third-year parents. Ms. Baum asks if that's really true, and the colleague confirms, advising her to just take her time. Trusting her colleague's advice, she flips through the consultation forms, doubting anyone actually signed up. Her eyes go wide as she sees a consultation form for Seon Han-gil, requested by his uncle Seon Jae-gyu, who is listed as always available. She stares at the form in utter disbelief, unable to process what she's seeing. Flustered, she wonders why he signed up when she was told no one does, noting that even his handwriting is loud. A coworker startles her, offering a box and telling Miss Baum to take one. He explains that Miss Kim, the new teacher from Seoul, received rice cakes from her former school's colleagues. Her thoughts darken as she recalls gossip about her own 2-year dispatch to the countryside. She remembers the bitter comments about her transfer, wondering if anyone in Seoul was sad to see her go. The memory of someone callously asking when she was leaving makes her clench her jaw in frustration. Deciding to get back to work, she steps into the hallway to make a call. She recalls a student named Sejin, saying her older brother would come for the consultation instead of her parents. She also remembers Mr. Hong's strange and panicked advice to avoid Han Gil's guardian at all costs. Ring, ring. She nervously makes the call, wondering if he'll pick up so early. He answers, and she formally introduces herself as Seon Han Gil's new teacher, calling about the consultation. Wah! An incredibly enthusiastic shout from the other end of the line makes her jump in surprise. Puzzled by his cheerful tone, she continues, asking when would be a good time to schedule the meeting. I can go now, he says immediately, leaving her completely stunned and asking, what? He clarifies that he just needs to start his car, prompting a flustered Ms. Baum to quickly suggest Monday instead. He agrees to Monday, but as she confirms the day, she stops mid-sentence, perplexed by something else he said. Confused, she asks him to repeat himself, but he just laughs and dismisses it as nothing. Internally, she panics, realizing she heard him perfectly, and decides to schedule this weird person when no one else is around. She proposes Monday at 4 p.m., and he agrees, saying he'll mark it in his calendar. As cherry blossoms float outside the window, he suddenly asks if there's anything she likes. Caught off guard by the personal question, she looks away from the window. Flustered, she asks why he's asking, and he clarifies by questioning if she takes health supplements. The bizarre question leaves her picturing ginseng and vitamins, completely bewildered. Forcing a laugh, she says no and asks why, but he just says he'll bring something and then abruptly hangs up. She stares at her phone in the silent hallway, completely dumbfounded by the strange call. She wonders why he hung up so suddenly and speculates that he must be unemployed to be so readily available. The thought of meeting him gives her a headache, though she notes he did follow through on donating the coffee grinder, which the vice principal adores. Standing by the window, she trails off in thought, pondering the situation. As she wonders what will happen, the scene shows Lim in his car, looking pensive. The scene shifts to Miss Baum, standing in a sunlit room, preparing for the meeting. She pulls her hair back with a scrunchie, thinking this style is the prettiest. Adjusting her simple but professional outfit, she appears ready to face the day. With the meeting approaching, Ms. Baum admits to herself that she's a little nervous since it's been a while. Riding the bus, she notes that it's already Monday, and though she never thought she'd get used to this place, time has flown by. As the bus travels through the sunlit town, she reflects that she has indeed gotten quite used to her new life here. The bright morning sun illuminates the school building as another day begins. Entering the bustling school hallway, she wonders why it's so chaotic with students still lingering around. Her attention is drawn to the handsome student, Seon Hongil, who watches the commotion with a serious look. Nearby, Hongil politely turns down a female student's confession, apologizing and saying he's not looking to date right now. Wah! The rejected girl bursts into tears, and Miss Baum looks on somehow feeling responsible as she urges the student not to cry. Approaching Hangil, she asks him if he heard that his uncle is coming to the school later. Surprised, he asks, "My uncle is coming?" And she confirms, suggesting he wait and go home with him after the conference. Hangil smiles politely but declines the offer, explaining he has a prior engagement and will be leaving now. As he walks away, she thinks to herself that if his uncle said he was coming, he probably won't be late, feeling a little confused by Hangil's behavior. A vivid memory of Lim, leaning in close and calling her beautiful flashes through her mind. Standing alone in the classroom, she tries to dismiss the memory, telling herself she must have misheard him. The empty classroom is bathed in sunlight as she waits for the meeting to start. Thump, thump! Her head whips around at the sound of heavy, swift footsteps approaching, and she instinctively knows it's him. A smiling Lim appears in the doorway, cheerfully greeting her while holding a potted plant with a hit the jackpot ribbon. Her eyes land on his arm, and she notes with a blush that he's wearing another tight t-shirt and his tattoo sleeves. Flustered and confused by the hit the jackpot message, she awkwardly greets him back. Haha, he laughs playfully, asking if there's a problem with his gift. Her gaze drifts lower, and her eyes widen in shock as she notices his pants are a bit full. Eek mortified, she quickly hides her bright red face behind her clipboard. Her mind screams in disbelief. Don't they fit a bit too perfectly? Peeking over her clipboard, she scolds herself not to stare while wondering why he would wear pants that tight. Composing herself, she stands and introduces herself as Han Gyal's homeroom teacher, Yoon Baum, to which he stammers a reply. He seems completely captivated, stuttering her name as she wonders what's gotten into him. He takes her hand for a firm handshake, telling her it's a pleasure to meet her. As their hands meet, she's surprised by how rough and hot his hand is. Pulling her hand back, she gestures toward a small desk and invites him to sit down. Crack, as the muscular man sits, the small chair creaks alarmingly, prompting him to ask if it's an elementary school chair, while she panics internally. He asks if her name is a single character, confirming her surname is Yoon and her given name is Baum, and she replies that he's correct. He softly says her name, Bama, causing her to look up at him with wide, startled eyes. Smiling gently at her, he adds, pretty. He then excitedly points out that her name must mean spring in English, and asks if she is from Seoul, which she confirms. Lim proudly declares he's a Seoul half-breed who can switch between dialects, leaving Ms. Baum to realize one of his parents must be from Seoul. She sighs internally, thinking that his mixed accent makes it impossible to tell when he's joking. Getting down to business, she begins the consultation by stating that Han Gil has no intention of going to college, and his grades are lacking. She explains that while his mock exam scores are average, he has a good chance if they come up with a solid strategy for his second year. She concludes her assessment by advising against any definitive decisions right now and opens the floor for his questions. Lim leans forward intently and states that Hangul is not interested in college, only in graduating high school, which leaves her speechless. Brushing academics aside, he asks if Hangul gets along with friends and respects his teachers, and she confirms he's a popular and polite kid. Excellent, he says, with a smile, leaning closer and stating that's all that matters, as Hangul will figure the rest out himself. He leans in extremely close, his face just inches from hers as he closes his eyes. D2, she stammers, completely flustered as he opens his eyes and murmurs, Close her mind screams as she panics at their proximity. He pulls back with a smirk, leaving a bewildered Miss Baum to ask what that was supposed to mean. It's nothing, he replies breezily, though she internally fumes, knowing she heard him and it wasn't nothing. He asks if she's heading home and offers her a ride in his car, catching her completely off guard. She tries to refuse, but he's already gently pulling her toward the door, asking how she expects to carry the heavy plant he brought. Stopping him, she asks what he's thinking, raising a plant in a place with no sunlight, and asks if it's valuable, admitting her ignorance. He enthusiastically explains the plant is a money tree meant to make her rich, leaving her to mutter an unimpressed, "Ah." She declares there's no need to hear more, but he dismisses their age difference to be friendly, which only makes her fume that 4 years is a big deal. He smiles confidently, remarking that it seems they will be seeing each other often from now on. Left alone in the hallway, she sighs about the chaotic encounter. Still, a small, hopeful smile crosses her face as she thinks to herself. Her thoughts return to the oversized plant pot, which seems to have a radiating presence, and she wonders what she should do with it. Answering her phone, she's greeted by a man introducing himself as Choi Yi-jun, the older brother of her student, Choi Se-jin. The handsome, bespectacled Choi Yi-jun apologizes for calling so late about the parent-teacher conference. The scene shifts to a quiet classroom in the afternoon sun, with students dozing or studying. In class, Miss Baum lectures on philosophy, contrasting Socrates' belief in universal morality with the sophist's view that justice is relative. She continues her lecture about Socrates, but is suddenly interrupted. Startled, she finds Choi Yi-jun now standing before her as she's teaching. He eyes her coolly in his sharp suit, asking who she is. Just as he's about to speak, his sister Se-jin runs up from the hallway, happily calling out, "Oppa!" Se-jin introduces Ms. Baum as her homeroom teacher, and Ms. Baum notes that the siblings look exactly alike. Yi-jun's expression hardens as he criticizes Se-jin's shortened school uniform, grabbing her skirt and telling her to stop embarrassing the family, while Se-jin explains she borrowed it after spilling lunch on her own. He coldly retorts that she should just cause more problems then. The tense atmosphere is palpable as Yi-jun glares down at his dejected sister. Ms. Baum gently pats Se-jin's back, trying to comfort her over the incident with her skirt. She kindly tells Se-jin to return to the classroom so she can begin the consultation with her brother, and Se-jin agrees. As Se-jin leaves, Ms. Baum turns and formally introduces herself as Yan Baum to Yi-jun, noting his early arrival. He formally introduces himself as Choi Yi-jun, and, not having specified a location, suggests they have their consultation outside. On the school grounds, Ms. Baum regrets that they can't use an empty classroom because he arrived during school hours. Yi-jun glances at his watch, his posture radiating professionalism and impatience. As they sit at an outdoor table, she begins the consultation by thinking about Se-jin's school life. She reports that Se-jin is adjusting well and has good relationships, but Yi-jun cuts her off, stating he's not interested and is only there for a college consultation. Forcing a smile, she thinks he has an unpleasant way of being direct and resolves to stick to her plan. Underneath blooming wisteria, she begins to discuss Se-jin's academic situation. Acknowledging the school's lower achievement level, she focuses intently on her notes, preparing to detail her strategy for Se-jin. The scene transitions with a peaceful view of a bright blue sky. Yi-jun remarks that he heard she came from a Seoul school and is clearly different, to which she replies that she's glad to be helpful. A flashback shows Se-jin's perspective, lamenting that no matter how hard she studies, she never receives praise from her family. Back in the present, Ms. Baum passionately defends Se-jin, insisting that she works incredibly hard. Yi-jun scoffs at her praise, coldly asking what there is to praise, when Se-jin failed to get into a good high school and ended up in this backwater, calling her a disgrace to the family. His cruel words hit Ms. Baum hard, and she stares at him in disbelief. She's struck by a painful memory of a man pointing and shouting that she is a disgrace to the family. Whack! She slams her hand on the table, trying to argue for Se-jin's potential, but Yi-jun interrupts, accusing her of naively thinking that doing one's best is enough. He dismisses her optimism as unhelpful, while she internally argues that there's more to life than studying, realizing he's just like her own honor-obsessed father. Announcing he has a court hearing, Yi-jun abruptly ends the meeting, asking her to take care of Se-jin before leaving. Left alone, she stares after him, wondering how someone can be so heartless. Back at her desk, she sighs, second-guessing her decision to interfere. Clenching her jaw, she admits that the phrase "family's disgrace" was what made her flare up. She realizes seeing Se-jin's intimidation reminded her of herself, but she tells herself she shouldn't have interfered with another family's affairs. Turning to the large potted plant, she declares it her biggest problem now, calling it a burden. She examines the "hit the jackpot" ribbon tied to the plant, wondering what it's supposed to mean. Pondering its fate, she reasons that the vice principal would dislike it, but it's too large for the classroom. Squeak! Startled by the sound of her chair, she looks over at the plant and addresses it directly. Sitting before the plant, she quietly asks its name, Jaegu, as if speaking to him. Grunting with effort, she struggles to lift the plant, amazed at how Lim carried the heavy pot with just one arm. Exhausted, she panics, wondering how she'll ever get the enormous plant home on the bus. Crouching by a wall outside, she struggles with the heavy pot, calling out the name Jaegu. Her struggle is interrupted by Jaegu, who pulls up in his car and asks what she's doing with that baggage, startling her into a scream. Flustered, she wonders how he got there so quickly and questions his choice of sunglasses. He coolly lowers his sunglasses, reminding her that he promised her a ride. Thud. He gets out of the car, and she asks him what brings him back to the school. He proudly presents the massive plant, prompting a startled Ms. Bohm to stammer that she will carry it herself. As he places the plant in his car, he explains he's welcoming a guest, much to her confusion. Having buckled the plant into the passenger seat, he cheerfully announces that it's time to go. She tries to refuse the plant, but he guilt-trips her by questioning if an ethics teacher should disregard someone's sincerity. She seethes internally, wondering what being an ethics teacher has to do with this as he stares her down. Unfazed, he smoothly invites Hanjul's teacher to get into the car. As he insists she get in, she caves, deciding it's better than being seen bickering in public. With a view of the sky, he announces their departure and reminds her to fasten her seatbelt. As he speeds off, she protests that he didn't warn her, thinking he's a truly strange person. While they drive through a scenic town, she asks to be dropped off at the stone bridge, and he confidently replies he could find it with his eyes closed. Relieved she won't have to give directions, her peace is shattered when he jokingly considers closing his eyes to prove his point. Whack! In a panic, she smacks him and screams, "What? No!" He bursts out laughing at her reaction, while she fumes, realizing she fell for his joke yet again. He continues driving with a charming, confident smile. Peeking over at him, Ms. Bohm reluctantly admits to herself that he is indeed handsome. Her gaze drifts to his arm, where she spots a suspicious-looking burn mark. He catches her staring and asks what's wrong, causing a flustered Ms. Bohm to look away. He simply offers a knowing, handsome smile in return. Ugh. Her face flushes bright red as she misidentifies the car's gear stick, shouting his name in mortification. He leans over and gently pats her head, leaving her completely flustered by the intimate gesture. He just smiles coolly, enjoying her reaction as they drive. The scene transitions to a view of the city skyline at dusk. He quietly tells her that he isn't like this with just anyone, as she sits beside him in silence. Answering the call, she's blindsided by the news that she's been made the advising teacher for a new green energy club. She questions the sudden decision, suggesting the science teacher would be a better fit, but is told her name is just a formality. Annoyed, she listens as the caller details her minimal duties, realizing they're just dumping unwanted work on her. Defeated, she quietly agrees as they continue driving through town. Arriving in a residential neighborhood, she asks him to let her out. Getting out of the car, he surveys the area and comments that she should have found a place closer to the school. Mortified, she realizes he has driven her right to her home, whose location she had desperately tried to keep secret. He notices her hesitation and cheerfully offers to carry the heavy plant for her. Dismissing her protests, he insists on carrying the plant to her door, forcing her to reluctantly agree. She warns him there's no parking, but he casually brushes off her concern. He gives her a confident thumbs up before turning away. Utterly confused, she can only stare and wonder what he's planning. Vroom. To her shock, he expertly maneuvers his expensive black car into an impossibly tight alleyway. She panics, wondering how he'll ever get the car out and worrying that the expensive-looking Porsche will be scratched. Holding the plant, he tells her to lead the way, while she makes a futile attempt to take it from him. She directs him to a rooftop patio, asking him to please put the plant down there. He questions why she wants it outside, and she explains that the sunlight is good for it. She internally reaffirms her decision not to let him inside her house, despite him now knowing where she lives. Looking around her rooftop, he remarks that it's a great watch post. Oh. He begins practicing what look like martial arts moves, much to her bemused silence. Jaegu continues his strange movements on her rooftop, pointing out that it's a poor spot for a watch post since it's too open. Mortified, she internally panics, thinking he's the most dangerous person here. On the rooftop patio, she dismisses him, thanking Mr. Hangyol and telling him to leave, but he just looks impressed as she yells his name in frustration. TSK. Annoyed, he turns to her, reminding her they agreed to drop the formalities. Flustered, she corrects herself. Ah, Right, Mr. Sion Jaegu, while internally fumbling for his name and wishing he would just go. She watches him stand there silently, wondering why he isn't leaving. He clutches his chest dramatically, lamenting his wounded heart and questioning if this is how Seoul shows hospitality, not even offering coffee. Ms. Baum can only stare, completely baffled by his theatrical display. From a high angle, she bluntly refuses his coffee plea, leaving him to ask in disbelief what she means. He smiles brightly, cheekily, asking if she knows how little teachers earn, before promising to treat her next time, which stuns her. She internally panics, realizing she desperately does not want there to be a next time. Changing tactics, she puts on a bright smile, insisting he have coffee now, and claiming she's suddenly craving it too. He eyes her thoughtfully, commenting that she must really want coffee after all. Startled by his perception, she turns and stammers his name. With a casual wave, he turns and walks away without another word. She watches him go, confusedly wondering if he's actually leaving. As the sun sets, she sighs in resignation, thinking he's a person who just does whatever he wants. The scene transitions to a view of her building's brick corner at dusk. Now inside, Miss Bohm dries her hair, looking refreshed after her strange encounter. Walking into her entryway, she spots her phone on a small table and announces she found it. She picks up the phone, her expression turning serious as she looks at the screen. Yunbom, you're not answering your phone. A flashback begins, with Ms. Baum narrating that she and her brother never had a close relationship, and in fact, were especially strained. The memory shows their mother doting on her brother while ignoring a young, sad Ms. Baum, who explains he was the favored eldest son and was sent to study in the U.S. The flashback continues, showing her timid brother being bullied in the U.S., unable to adapt before dropping out of high school and returning to Korea. Back in Korea, their relationship crumbled, especially after she was accepted into Seoseong University, a school her brother had failed to get into. Feeling pressured, she gave her spot to him and enrolled in Seowa Women's University instead, a move that only seemed to wound his pride further, setting the stage for a fateful day. On a rainy day, her mother calls, telling her to wait for her brother to pick her up from the library, but she protests, saying she's uncomfortable with him. She recalls her entertainer mother was ashamed of her children using public transport, yet never bought her a car. Thunk. She gets into her brother's car, the mood immediately tense and somber. The two siblings ride in deeply uncomfortable silence as he drives through the pouring rain. Trying to break the tension, she forces a smile and talks about being tired from midterms. He snaps, asking why a Seowa elite cares about his garbage school and angrily tells her to shut her mouth. Cowed, she apologizes, quietly saying she just wanted to talk to her brother. He cruelly scoffs at the word brother, asking if she ever truly treated him like one, leaving her speechless and hurt. Overwhelmed, she finally breaks down, crying out and asking what she ever did to deserve such horrible treatment from him. Pow! Enraged by her talking back, he violently punches the dashboard. The car veers out of control as Ms. Baum screams in terror. Crash! The car smashes into a guardrail in the pouring rain. The narration reveals the accident left her brother with permanent leg damage, causing him to walk with a limp. Back in the present, Ms. Baum hesitantly calls him back on her phone. Her brother answers and immediately asks if she's coming back to Seoul next year, causing her to freeze in place. The scene shifts to her on the phone with her mother, explaining she'll work at a private school where no one knows her, but her mother scoffs at the idea. Her mother criticizes her for going into teaching, saying she should have stuck with art. Her mother delivers a chilling warning, telling her that no matter where she ends up in Seoul, she will have to hide her face. Hanging up, Ms. Baum taps her phone, wondering about the real reason her brother suddenly brought everything up. She sees a news photo of her mother, a veteran actress, at a press event for a new drama, flanked by two men, one of whom appears to be her brother. Stunned, she realizes her mom is acting again and questions why no one told her about this major comeback after years away. A traumatic memory floods back of her parents screaming at her, calling her a disgrace to the family, making her realize this is why they didn't want her home for the holidays. Thud. Utterly devastated by the truth, she collapses to the floor, clutching her phone. Overwhelmed by the painful memories, Ms. Boom collapses into tears while clutching her phone. Ding dong. A sudden visitor interrupts her breakdown, making her wonder if it's a delivery person. Wiping her teary eyes, she groggily approaches the door, still wondering who it could be. Thump! To her surprise, a hand offers her an iced coffee. It's Seon Jae-gyu, looking slightly sweaty as he tells her to drink it. Holding the drink, she realizes he must have run out just to get this for her. Her eyes widen as she finds herself thinking he looks good, even while sweating. Looking a bit breathless, Jigu adjusts his collar, seeming slightly flustered himself. He explains that he noticed she didn't enjoy her drink earlier and got her this from a cafe run by the local elders. She has a flashback to a kind elderly couple at a cafe, realizing he means the community co-op, Silver Nuri. Confirming it's the one, he tells her to go inside, seemingly preparing to leave. She stares after him, her expression a mixture of confusion and contemplation. He suddenly turns back with a serious look, demanding to know who the jerk was that made her cry, but she denies it. Forcing a smile, she insists that nothing happened and that she is perfectly fine. Click? Unconvinced, he coolly suggests they step outside for a moment. She scrambles to agree, shouting that she's coming as she rushes to the rooftop at sunset. Arriving on the rooftop, she gasps, "Whoa!" completely captivated by the beautiful view. Now sitting on a bench beside him, she brightly asks if the view isn't great. He takes a sip of his own drink and agrees that it's seriously amazing, his contentment shone with floating hearts. Her expression sours as she notices he got himself a sweet strawberry latte. With a smug, romanticized flourish, he flirtatiously twists her words, asking if she just called him sweet. She recoils in shock at his cheesy joke, and he chides her for overreacting. Composing herself, she comments on his drink's rich color, noting she's never seen one with so much strawberry syrup. He boasts that people always give him extra, and she sarcastically retorts that it must be nice. He flashes a charming smile and asks if she dislikes her iced Americano. Smiling genuinely, she admits she likes it and that it's her first time having such a nutty-tasting one. Leaning closer, he announces there's one more bonus for her, piquing her curiosity. He presents a small, wrapped candy, and she wonders where she's heard that phrase before. They share a gentle, charged moment as he holds the candy out for her. Her heart thumps as she gazes at him, captivated. Their two drinks, one with a strawberry and one without, sit side by side on the bench. Touching her cheek shyly, she quietly thanks him for the day. He leans in close, cheekily asking if she was crying because she was thinking about him, leaving her stunned. He doubles down, asking if she was missing him, which makes her angrily tell him to stop saying such strange things. After a stuttered, "All right," she gives him a firm shove from behind, telling him to just leave already. He just smiles over his shoulder, telling Ms. Bohm he'll leave when he's ready and that she can go back inside. She watches him for a moment before giving his back a gentle pat and turning away with a small smile. Waving goodbye, he casually walks down the stairs. Sighing, she closes her apartment door behind her, finally alone. Back on the rooftop, she looks at the plant, thinking she can't be bothered with him after his kind gesture and noticing it seems to have grown. Admiring the now glowing plant, she proudly thinks it must be because she gave it such a nice name. A warm, genuine smile spreads across her face. Looking at the hose, she decides to give her newly named plant, Jaegu, some water. She happily sprays the plant with water from the hose. As the water splashes over the leaves, the plant seems to think refreshing. Ms. Baum laughs, enjoying the simple, happy moment. She suddenly freezes, startled by a sound behind her. Creak. A hand turns off the water spigot as she wonders who is there. It's Jaegu again. She asks why he's back, and he just replies, "Well," while scratching his head. He nervously stammers, completely flustered by her touch. Seeing his reaction, she pulls back, asking if something is really wrong as he begins to confess the truth. In a sudden desperate plea, he begs her to help him get his car out, leaving her stunned. Shocked, she recalls his fancy car and remembers hearing he was a parking king, making his request even more confusing. Vroom. The car's engine starts as it sits perilously close to the brick wall. With a nervous sweat drop, she mutters, "All right," as she prepares to guide him. From the driver's seat, he cheekily asks her to speak up, prompting her to shout back, "All right!" Standing far back, she watches as he leans out the window, yelling for her to be louder. As she waves her arms to guide him, he smirks from the driver's seat, complimenting her skill. Screech. With her guidance, the car inches forward, successfully clearing the wall. She happily signals that he's almost clear, and he smiles back, pleased with their teamwork. Vroom. The car pulls out completely, and she cheers that he did it, calling him amazing. He gets out of the car with a flourish and a proud ta-da. Smiling, she admits that she honestly didn't think he'd be able to do it. Flustered by her compliment, he blushes and turns away, touching the back of his neck. Back in the driver's seat, with his face in his hands, he mutters that he'd just gotten himself calmed down, confusing her. Peeking through his fingers, he quickly dismisses her concern, says it's nothing, and announces he's leaving. Vroom. He speeds off, leaving her standing alone in the street. She stares after him at the now empty street, utterly baffled by his abrupt departure. Turning away, she grumbles about him leaving without a goodbye, and then examines the macaron he gave her, wondering about its flavor. She takes a bite of the macaron, a happy, satisfied smile spreading across her face. The scene shifts to a sunny day at school as a photographer calls out, "Okay, smile. 1, 2. Ms. Baum looks confused as she holds a banner with several students for the Green Energy Club Green Array inauguration ceremony. A man named Mr. Jiang pauses the photo to wipe his camera lens, and Ms. Baum tells him to take his time. Standing in the group, Ms. Baum overhears students wondering why their friend Sejin, who's aiming for law school, joined the club. A boy with glasses, Seon Hang-yeol, whispers to Choi Sejin, asking if she has a crush on him. A close-up reveals the handsome and charming smile of the boy in question. Sejin furiously denies the accusation, her face flushed with anger, but the boy with glasses thinks to himself that her reaction is telling. Ms. Baum puts 2 and 2 together, realizing Sejin joined the club for Hang-yeol, and marveling at the other boy's perceptiveness. Mr. Jeong aims his camera, announcing that he's taking the photo now. He tells the students to smile for a photo destined for the Board of Education. Mr. Jeong singles out Sejin, telling her to work harder to be as successful as him, causing her to look down sadly. Ms. Baum speaks up, telling Mr. Jeong that Sejin is already working hard, but he just announces he's leaving, oblivious to the fact he upset his student. A teacher dismisses the group for a special lecture, telling Sejin and Hang-yeol to head to the seminar room. As they start to leave, Hang-yeol jogs over, inviting the teacher, Ms. Baum, to walk with him, and then asks Sejin to come too. Sejin looks completely flustered and shocked by his direct invitation. A memory of her friend's accusation. "You like him, don't you?" Seon Hang-yeol flashes through her mind. Mortified, Sejin shouts that she'll go by herself and runs away, as Ms. Baum calls after her in surprise. Ms. Baum waves as Hang-yeol leaves, guessing Sejin was just embarrassed, while he looks on with a confused expression. Walking together, Ms. Baum asks Hang-yeol why he joined the Green Array Club. He cheerfully explains his interest in green energy, mentioning his uncle works in the field, as a chibi image of Jaegyu gives a thumbs up. Ms. Baum is completely shocked by the news, her mind reeling as she asks, "He works?" Hang-yeol laughs, clarifying he meant his uncle is always out and about, while Ms. Baum laughs awkwardly at her misjudgment. Thinking he was just a flashy poser, Ms. Baum is now intrigued and reevaluating her opinion of Jaegyu. Arriving at the lecture, Ms. Baum finds that, of course, the only seats left are in the front row. She glances toward the front of the classroom and sees a stern-looking man in a vest and glasses. A projector screen introduces the speaker as Prosecutor Choi Jun, displaying his impressive academic credentials, which elicit murmurs of awe from the students. Sitting with her arms crossed, Ms. Baum acknowledges that his credentials are the very definition of elite. Prosecutor Choi Jun begins his speech, stating that a good prosecutor must always look after the powerless and marginalized with warmth and empathy. In a sepia-toned memory, the stern prosecutor Choi Jun chides his younger sister, telling her to solve another problem set instead of wasting time. Watching Sejin from behind, Hang-yeol thinks that her brother should try looking at her with some warmth, and that she must have had a hard time. Blink. Ms. Baum fights to stay awake, thinking that the warm classroom and Mr. Choi's calm voice are putting her to sleep. A voice suddenly calls out, "Ms. Baum, wake up!" startling her awake with a jolt. She looks up to see Hang-yeol, who informs her that the lecture is over and everyone has left. He lightheartedly admits that he fell asleep too. Noticing he hasn't left, she asks why he's still here, and he explains he was curious about something, prompting her to ask if it's with her. The speaker is revealed to be Prosecutor Choi Jun, who coolly asks who else would be there. Smiling nervously in the empty hallway, Ms. Baum laments the lack of witnesses and tells him to go ahead with his question. He leans over her desk, catching her off guard by asking if she slept well. In a rosy, sparkling moment, she closes her eyes, a mixture of peace and embarrassment on her face. Whack! She snaps back to reality, her face completely flushed with mortification. Stammering, she offers a flustered apology for drooling in front of him. He straightens up, brushing it off by saying it's fine, though a slight blush appears on his own cheeks. He turns and walks briskly down the hall as she watches him go, marveling at his speed. A faded memory of him wiping her lip replays in her mind as she thinks, still though, back in the present. She touches her lip, admitting to herself that his sudden action really startled her. She reflects on his unsettling intensity, thinking that the way he looks at people is like a snake's stare. In a burst of feeling, she fervently hopes she doesn't have to see him again. The scene changes to a sunny street where Jae-gyu waves from his car, and Ms. Baum calls back that she's coming. As Jae-gyu cheerfully urges her to get in, she thinks to herself that she had planned on sitting in the back. Sighing with resignation, she decides she has no choice and gets into the passenger seat. Through a cascade of cherry blossoms, Jae-gyu compliments her, saying she looks bright today. A shining close-up shows Jae-gyu smiling confidently from the driver's seat. Surrounded by pink petals, a flustered Miss Baum stands outside the car and stammers "Why, yes. Whack!" She blushes, realizing he immediately noticed that she had dressed up for the occasion. A title card announces a flashback to 3 days prior, during club time at Shinsu High School. In a classroom, Miss Baum decides to plan a field trip to a renewable energy site for the semester and begins pondering a suitable location. A chibi version of Ms. Baum taps her chin, looking perplexed as she wonders where a good place to go would be. Hang-yeol raises his hand to suggest his uncle's solar panel site, and Ms. Baum asks if he means one at a house. Explaining that his uncle runs a huge renewable energy company, Hang-yeol shows her a photo of a massive solar farm, shocking another student. Ms. Baum thinks it's a perfect idea, but wants to check first. But Hang-yeol excitedly adds that his uncle said he'd approve the trip if she came for a preliminary visit. Back in the present, Ms. Baum closes her eyes in the car, recalling how she ended up on a Saturday morning outing. She opens her eyes with a smile, deciding it's not so bad and enjoying the nice sunlight. Jae-gyu suddenly shatters the calm mood by saying this isn't the time for leisurely talk about sunshine, leaving her confused. He gestures to a box of sunglasses, abruptly telling her to pick a pair, which catches her completely by surprise. Startled, she leans back and simply asks him why. He dramatically proclaims he needs to cover his eyes before he goes blind from her radiance, making her blush. From the back seat, Hang-yeol asks his uncle to get going, while Ms. Baum, sitting up front, nervously tells him to please drive. Whoosh! The car speeds off past a blur of beautiful cherry blossoms. Gazing out the window as shimmering petals fly by, Ms. Baum thinks to herself how beautiful it is. As she hums happily, she glances at Jae-gyu and wonders why he's in such a cheerful mood. Humming along himself, Jae-gyu drives with a contented look, while she notes he's wearing one of his performance shirts again. Watching him and Hang-yeol, she admires how well the clothes suit him, and wonders if anything looks bad on him. Her gaze falls on his arm, and she wonders why he isn't wearing his tattoo sleeves, then notices a painful-looking burn scar. Jae-gyu suddenly says, Again, and she turns to him, confused, asking, Huh? Flashing a smug, charming smile, he asks her to admit that he's charming, no matter how many times she looks at him, startling her. While she decides not to even glance at him anymore, Hang-yeol mutters an annoyance from the back seat, telling someone named Hyung-seok to stop. Hang-yeol suddenly asks his uncle to pull over, saying he needs to get out, and Jae-gyu agrees as Ms. Baum looks on in surprise. As the car pulls over, Hang-yeol hops out, announcing his departure to a surprised Ms. Baum, while Jae-gyu casually wishes him well. The sudden realization that she's now alone with Jae-gyu sends Ms. Baum into a panic, while he cheerfully tells her to relax. Vroom! As they drive on, Jae-gyu proudly declares himself the driving king, with 11 years of accident-free driving, a title Ms. Baum silently scoffs at. They arrive at a picturesque park filled with cherry blossoms, where Jae-gyu's voice calls out her name. Turning to her with a gentle smile, he asks if she finds the scenery as lovely as he does. Gazing at the passing view, she quietly agrees with him, lost in thought. He asks if she likes gardens, but she struggles to stay awake, her lack of sleep catching up to her. Determined, she fights the urge to sleep, telling herself she absolutely must stay awake. The mortifying memory of drooling before flashes in her mind, and she fights sleep even harder. Lurch! The car suddenly comes to a halt on a dirt road. The abrupt stop jolts her forward, and she cries out, "Ouch!" Looking around in a daze, She realizes with a start that she fell asleep after all. Disoriented, she looks out at a large, traditional building and asks where they are. Jae-gyu opens her door, announcing they're at Taring Garden for its amazing food, leaving her utterly baffled. He beams, proudly explaining that he brought her here because she said she liked gardens. He took things a little too literally. With a jolt, she realizes she's been completely tricked by his ridiculous wordplay. Inside, the traditional restaurant is surprisingly empty. As she mutters, "Oh my," he confidently ushers her inside, promising her the best table in the house. Watching him walk, she thinks he has the powerful aura of a tiger, recalling how she initially mistook him for a gangster. She reconsiders, admitting he isn't a gangster but can't help but admire his impressive physique. A sudden voice calls out, "Been a while, Mr. Sion," startling her. An older man greets Jae-gyu warmly, and as they chat, Ms. Bohm is struck by their resemblance. At the table, the man asks about allergies, but Jae-gyu confidently boasts that he's in perfect health. She silently corrects his logic, thinking that health doesn't preclude allergies, but quickly decides it's not worth the argument. While pouring her a drink, he laments not being able to drink himself, and suggests they return for a proper drink another time. She agrees aloud, but internally she's screaming no way, deciding it's easier to just go along with it for now. Her eyes land on a signed photo from someone named Seon Jae-gyu, and she points it out in surprise, but he just plays it off coolly. With a dramatic pose, he proudly reveals he is the Seon Jae-gyu, the adored star of Shinsu EUP. Unimpressed, she changes the subject by suggesting they invite Hang Yeol, thinking to herself that he's giving her that look again. Jae-gyu dismisses the idea, confidently stating he knows Hang Yeol won't come, which makes her wonder why he's so certain. He insists, "I've raised that brat since he was just the size of a soul," leaving her to question his unwavering confidence. His words cause a massive misunderstanding as she flushes, shockingly thinking he meant he was married. Just then, a waiter arrives, placing a huge platter of steaming baeksuk on their table. Staring at the massive dish, she asks if they can possibly finish it all, but he casually remarks that it's only 3 servings. He reassures her with a smile, telling her to eat comfortably since they can always take leftovers. He then comments that she's so skinny she might keel over, earning him an annoyed glare. He ignores her protest completely, bringing the food directly to her lips with the tongs. Despite herself, she takes a bite and is immediately lost in a moment of bliss over the tender duck meat. Just then, 2 people arrive, and Ms. Baum looks over to see Hang Yeol and a woman, relieved they didn't have to wait in line. Noting how quickly the restaurant filled up, she reflects that her own family dinners were always at stuffy, high-end restaurants. She finds herself enjoying the laid-back, bustling vibe, thinking it feels much better. Across the table, Jae-gyu watches her with a warm, gentle smile as he tends to the food. The scene shifts to a pharmacy, where a pharmacist advises a patient to get a shot if the provided medication doesn't work. It's Jae-gyu at the counter, his face swollen from an allergic reaction, as Ms. Baum looks on. Looking at his swollen face, she tentatively asks if he's okay, to which he sarcastically retorts, "Do I look okay?" She can't help but stifle a laugh at his appearance, which only makes him angrier, asking how she can laugh while he's dying. The scene flashes back to their tour of the solar farm, where she finds herself impressed by how knowledgeable and articulate he is. She stares, having just noticed his face swelling up, and asks what happened, but he tries to brush it off as looking cool. Grabbing his arm, she insists it's an allergic reaction and they need to go to the hospital, but he stubbornly refuses, wanting to finish the tour first. Desperate to get him help, she promises to return and finish the tour later, and he reluctantly agrees with a swollen-faced deal. Back in the car, she reflects on how they barely calmed him down, noting his absurd pride in never needing a hospital, and is just relieved they found a pharmacy. He smirks while holding the ointment, cryptically remarking that if his lips are messed up, it will ruin the plan. Utterly bewildered, she wonders what plan he's talking about and thinks he's insane as he begins to apply the ointment. Snatching the ointment from him, she scolds him for applying it wrong, while he asks what was wrong with his method. Leaning in close, she gently applies the ointment to his face for him, creating a tender moment between them. He suddenly grabs her wrist, pulling her closer and startling her with his intense gaze. Leaning over her, he brings his face close to hers, causing her to let out a soft, surprised sound. After a tense moment, he tells her to stop, and when she asks if it hurt, his blushing ear reveals his own flustered state. He leans back in his seat, covering his face and dramatically complaining that being so healthy is his biggest flaw, leaving her completely baffled. He suddenly leans across the car, telling her it will just be a second, while she asks what he's doing all of a sudden. From outside, the car is seen parked on the street as she continues to wonder about his strange behavior. Still in the car, she huffs in annoyance, thinking he's a truly weird guy for just grabbing her and walking out like that. While she wonders what on earth is going through his head, he's outside flexing and loudly singing the national anthem with bandages on his face. Watching his bizarre display, she finds herself genuinely curious about what kind of life he has lived to make him this way.